still asleep, and I ain't talking about no bedtime. The truth is not a Google search, you need to get your head right. The Greek goddess of illusion was called Media, and I'm not a coincidence theorist, I look for thread lines, smashing every deadline, no longer smashing red wine. Though I can hear the bells chime, it feels like the end times. That probably should have been smashed on red wine, but the carnal mind is foolish. Obey and end up ghoulish. Don't get used by instinct, take control and learn to use it. Make a load of earnest music, earn a few quid, learn a few tricks. Sure, the truth is persecuted, this whole world is pure abusive. Know a bit about everything and everything about nothing. Figured out my noggin while you picture out shopping. You sit about watching while I dish it out, stop it. I don't mean to sound cocky, I'm not even proud of it. It's a second nature to me, just for me to sound honest. I don't even need to sound honest, never been about profit. Everything but out on it, you can bet your house on it. Doubt I'll be out for the count when the sounds, and I'm down for the beat, no beat down. I mean, how long's it been? Help me out. I've been the only one who's held me down. All in the mind, hell freeze now. Still sick with it, healthy how? Few bars down and the world freaked out. I don't reach out, I seek out to speak out. I'ma recount the reasons they beat out.
Hello. Welcome to the 509 Divine Pines podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Daniel Pena, and it is January 29th, 2024. And today we have on Stephen Gray with the Entheogenic Healing and Awakening. But first and foremost, guys, I just want to say thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, share. Tell everybody around that this is going down. There are sponsors and coupons down below, donation links down below, and you know, everything that you need to get yourself kicked off right for 2024, because you know, a little bit of a boost will get you to where you need to go. And wisdom is power, wisdom is the boost, and we got beautiful things for you on this program. And remember, guys, this is a people for people broadcast, meaning I service out to you, you service out to others. We all service each other with wisdom, power, and strength, and we help our reality because there is no community without unity. Ain't that right, Stephen Gray? Hey, man, welcome. Hope you're doing good.
Yeah.
So, but first and foremost, for all my new viewers out there, tell them a little bit about yourself, just a quick little summarization, and where they can find you.
Well, where they can find me is I'm on Facebook as Stephen Gray or Stephen Gray Vision. The Stephen and the Gray are mushed together for the name on Facebook. Stephen Gray, all one word, and then Vision. And then I think I'm occasionally on Instagram. I use LinkedIn a little bit. Rare occasions I use TikTok and X. But I also have a website, stephengrayvision.com. For people who are only hearing this and not seeing it, it's STEPHENGRAY, stephengrayvision.com. Yeah. And I'm also part of a really important organization or initiative called the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference that's been in Vancouver for the last 13 years, bringing leaders in the psychedelic movement to Vancouver. And the website for that is spiritplantmedicine.com, and also on Facebook as Spirit Plant Medicine. So lots of ways to get through to me if people want to. And as far as my 29 and a half words or less bio, so to speak, I've been around the block quite a few times, worked with a lot of different psychedelic medicines, plants, peyote, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, 5-MeO. Cannabis is my sort of favorite psychedelic, and yes, it is a psychedelic. I've written some books. I've edited some books. And as I mentioned, I've been co-organizing the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference for the last 13 years. I also have my own YouTube channel called Stephen Gray Vision, the same thing, Stephen Gray mushed together and then Vision, where I've interviewed, about 30 or so leading visionaries, etc., in the psychedelic world. So there's a quick one for you.
that is fascinating out here in the Pacific Northwest. We are a huge fan of these entheogenic healers and these substances, plant-based substances, plant-based medicines. We have native cultures, and we have just a lot of land, forests, and things that go with it. And yeah, I'll be real. This is an exciting conversation today because just recently we've seen a push in all these topics and in the positive light instead of how it was twisted and perverted over the last 100 years by the illicit illicit organizations, that we know about.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let us get started. I mean, first and foremost, I guess this is a fan question, that everybody would like to know. What is your favorite entheogen, and why?
Hmm. That's a good question. Uh, I like them all on some level. I don't do much of them anymore. I've been around for a long time, so I'm not doing a lot of them anymore, except for my one. And again, I would call it a psychedelic when it's used optimally, and that's cannabis. And so generally once a week, I sit down alone with cannabis and meditate and ponder and get ideas and occasionally play my guitar, things like that. But I especially emphasize or try to emphasize in myself. And I also lead cannabis ceremonies, and I have a book that seems to have caught the zeitgeist pretty well, called Cannabis and Spirituality. That's been around for about 7 years now, is still selling pretty well. So it feels like it lucked in to the culture on that one. So my emphasis more than anything is meeting this plant in as much quiet mind and silence as you can. There are lots of other ways to meet this plant, and I'm not denigrating or comparing in that sense, but for its most potent potential, its real, true spiritual power, it requires us to empty ourselves into it, just in the same way as you would with a so-called major entheogen. It's a different thing, of course, with something like psilocybin or ayahuasca, where you basically are going to get pulled into this experience. Cannabis is trickier that way because it does often stimulate ideas and thinking and so on and so on. So it's really easy to go that direction too. It may require, in some sense, more discipline than perhaps in some respects with some of these other entheogens. But if you can do that, if you can surrender to it, if you can empty into it, then there's a vast potential there.
I do think that the true practice of life, whether it be with substances or without substances, is to really empty your mind and really calm yourself. Find that meditation, and set cannabis is a very healing plant. I mean, literally, it is by far the best medicine in the world. And it was just 100 years ago or so that it really got twisted and its name thrown into the dirt. No pun intended. And it really was perverted, twisted. Really. If we
Oh
look
yeah.
back thousands of years ago, this was a common thing. A lot of cultures just looked at it like another plant. I mean, they probably knew a little bit more about it on a spiritual level. I mean, from what I know, it's like very heavenly. It's considered angelic, even like literally considered like one of the mother healers of plants. And it's by far a big role in my life as far as finding that peace and balance in a state of chaos around the world. I mean, I for sure like to say a prayer. I mean, even before I use, and it's just something that has allowed me to be comfortable in this world. So let's go ahead and switch it over. Now that we got your favorite, let's
Hmm.
figure this out. What can we do with our entheogens and our current state of the world? I mean, look, there's a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into it.
Yeah.
What's your
Okay.
take on?
Oh well, that's one big question there. Which could lead to a number of different directions. So I'm just going to talk about whatever pops up into my mind at any given moment here, and maybe we'll have a few non sequiturs, but that's okay. Well, these substances could be called reality medicines. There's a word around that has been used, especially in the past and somewhat in current times, called hallucinogenic or hallucinogens. But I and many others in the field don't really like that word because it implies that the visions and the experiences are artificial or even pathological. Like, oh, he's having a hallucinogen, right? Excuse me. Elder shamans and wisdom carriers from South America will sometimes say things like, well, when you take ayahuasca, you're entering into a world which is actually more real than the world that you had come out of to do this. And then in a similar fashion, not specifically or not regarding the use of medicines, but Buddhist teachings like Tibetan Buddhism will say that the world that almost everybody dwells in to a great degree is the world of what they call samsara or confused mind, and it's not real. It's a result or a package, so to speak, of ideas, concepts, beliefs, and so on that we put together almost from the moment we're born, and many would say, accumulated from past lives as well, but particularly a sort of a coherent, so to speak, set of stories that we put together to tell us, by which we tell us what we think is real or not real, or true or not true, and believable, not believable, all that stuff. But it's not based on experience. It's not based on surrendering into reality in that sense. And so what the plants can do, the psychedelics can do, is they can sort of break the ice flow, so to speak, and allow our natural brains, our natural mind, as Dr. Andrew Weil once called it, to blossom, to flourish. So there's sort of there's the way I often like to think of the functionality of psychedelics is as having two interwoven, overlapping capabilities that work together. And one of them is, again, they're not really separate in a sense, but nonetheless, one of them is that they can show us, they can bring out to the light the stuff that's buried within us in terms of our own personal history, our wounds from the past, and so on, because that material is holding us back. Most of us, almost all of us to one degree or another, are held back by the unresolved material where we got turned away from life, as Dr. Gabor Mate would say, that addiction, for example, is about turning away from our natural selves, turning away from life, blocking energy off, and so on and so on. And that registers both in the mind and the body. So that function of psychedelics is to expose some of that stuff. Sometimes people, it's almost like watching a movie screen, where it's almost as if they're having a dream where they see their past, or they see some situation in the past, or they just tap into deeply buried emotions, and so on and so on. So there's that side of it, which is almost like the more psychological therapeutic side of the function of these plants. And the other one, again, they're not completely separate because they're truth serums all around altogether, is that if we can surrender into them, they can show us a bigger, vaster, truer reality, so that we can find our place. We can start to learn from actual experience what our true place in the cosmos is. And many would say that that place is what you might call intelligent, wise, compassionate, peaceful, creative, interacting nodes within a web of life, that we're connected to everything. People often talk about when they've taken psychedelics, their love and appreciation and respect and care for nature goes up a lot. So that kind of thing. And this is all. I also want to add in on this that it's really important to say that this is not just about our own personal healing. There are 8 billion of us on this planet, and on some level, it's like you care if you're feeling better, et cetera, but the world doesn't care unless you do something about it, in a sense. So in a way, the healing process, one's own personal healing with psychedelics, I think ideally should be regarded as the ground or the foundation for actually, in a sense, going out into the world and bringing that intelligence, that peaceful mind, that centeredness, that compassion into activity, into manifesting in the world in a way that benefits the world. And then, in a sense, all bets are off because everybody has their own way to do that. Everybody has their own natural gifts. I just want to stress that the ultimate value for the big picture of psychedelics is that the healing that we do for ourselves isn't by any stretch just for ourselves.
This is for the universe. I do think that in some essence that these mushrooms, this fungi, can heal the land. I know that it actually absorbs a lot of toxic chemicals, and it just doesn't do that for the land. And when you're mentioning how these things um, open up our brain just a little bit, like literally, okay,
Mhm.
I understand this from a like a biological sense. In our brain, we have this neuroplasticity that's been trained on us, meaning like
Mhm.
throughout time and period, there's just different neurons and different synapses and different parts of our brain that have memories, images, sounds, vibrations, and feelings all attached to them like little memory blocks, and those get stuck. Those form the way we think and form the way that we live. And sometimes people need help remolding all of those networks in our brains because they're traumatic instances, or the way that modern reality has polluted and diluted a lot of our food. And don't even get me started on the medicines or what's flying in the sky, but a lot of these chemicals are harmful substances or like toxins. And what these entheogens do is that they spark a lot of receptors, and they go ahead and kickstart a lot of our brain activity again. But not just that, like when we use cannabis a little bit, CBD, how about that? Let's use it more appropriately and professionally. If we're going to heal people, then use cannabis in the edible form, or use it in an RSO form, yes, like a very medicinal form. And what this will do is this will kickstart the white blood cells, it'll literally double your white blood cells, kickstart all the processes in your body, so you can heal these skin cells. And then if learn about these other substances like psilocybin, and um yeah, that will go ahead and restart your brain activity. Then ayahuasca will go ahead and kind of clear a lot of that addiction and stuff. These substances really help out and destroy the toxins and heal the body for what it's truly made for. And it's very interesting that it was just like a couple hundred years ago these substances were used as natural healers. They were found in pharmaceutical when I want to say pharmaceutical, they were found in doctors' offices before the term pharmaceutical got really big, and then it's pharmakia and what that does. No, I don't mean that. So the doctors' offices, right? They would actually have these things. We know about that. I've seen many articles of old school 1800s doctors' offices and having all these plant-based medicines, and it's way before that, right? So these things will definitely heal our land. It'll heal our body, heal our mind, and they're very, very profound these days with all the research. I don't know about DMTO, or what did you say? Five
5-MeO
MEO DMT.
DMT. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's an
What is that?
interesting one. You want to hear about that one?
Yes, I wanted to go ahead
Yeah.
and
Okay. So it's related to DMT. So DMT, the full term is dimethyltryptamine, or something like NN. Forget if NN dimethyltryptamine or something like that. 5-MeO is related, but quite different in its effects. To be honest, I've never had a full-blown experience with DMT. I've had an aborted one that never was. It wasn't strong enough to break through the membrane, as it were. But I've had a couple of full breakthrough sessions with a guide, or a guide, I guess you'd say, with 5-MeO DMT. So I'll give you two sort of different angles on this. My personal experience, which for those people watching and listening, I wouldn't say is necessarily a template or the norm, but this is just how I experience them. First of all, the way that you take 5-MeO. I'll back up slightly. It originates from a toad called Bufo alvarius, but most people take it in the synthesized form, which is the exact same chemical formula.
Is this why that there was those signs in those national parks saying "Don't lick our toads"?
Well, that might be the similar one. There might be another one that it's poisonous if you lick the secretions on the back of it. It's used to protect them against a
It was the high
predator.
one.
Yeah, nonetheless, most people are taking 5-MeO DMT in as a synthesized substance. And then there are several different ways to take it, but the most powerful way, there's a couple of variations on that too. But for example, the way I encountered it is there's a type of pipe. It's almost like, what is like those freebase type pipes. It's like a little glass sort of ball or bubble at one end. And you put the sort of, it's a crystalline powdered sort of substance. You put it in there and then you light it from below and then it vaporizes and you have a toke, and it really helps to have somebody there, because even one toke can kind of incapacitate you as far as your motor abilities. But I had two with the person immediately lit it again. And I do not use the term "oh my God" casually. It's been overused. It's one of those sort of cliched words that, might be put to rest for a few years, but I just immediately uttered, "oh my God." So my experience was that you immediately feel this is reality. But it's weird in a sense, because it's not like you're seeing angels. There's no visual, although some people say there can be visual components to it. But for the majority of people, it's just this sense that you've entered what they often refer to as non-dual reality, where you feel like this is reality. It just makes sense. But it's completely non-linear. It's completely, in that sense, non-intellectual, non-cerebral. It's just a sense that you have entered into this space, and it's very brief. That full entry into the space perhaps only lasts 2-3 minutes, and then it starts to ease up, and in 10 or 15 minutes you're pretty much back to base camp. So personally, this is why I say I'm not necessarily an example or a template for other people, but personally, I'm not exactly sure what its long-term benefit is, because, yes, sure, you have maybe it depends on the person. You have a sense that, okay, there is this divine reality, but then you still have to work through your personal psychology and your personal history, and you're only in there for a couple of minutes. And in my experience, I didn't really pull back any material that I could use from. Now, having said that, I know at least a couple of people that work with it, you might say professionally, as guides or healers, and they tell a different story. There's one in particular I know, a fellow named Richard, who's been working with 5-MeO for several years, and he says that it does start to bring up material, but I think it also involves pre and post sessions as well. You don't just kind of go in and have this 5-minute wow experience and then you leave it. So
Was it these DMT elves that everyone
big
talks about?
pardon?
Was it
What's
these
that?
DMT elves that everyone talks about? These time elves?
Oh, no, that's different. That's what Terence McKenna talked about. So DMT has quite different effects. Again, whatever I say about DMT is not based on personal experience. It's based on reading, and I have read a bunch on it. I've read several books on it.
Hey, we
McKenna
trust your word around here.
McKenna in particular had some very out there descriptions. Very few other people have replicated his experience in terms of talking about it. He talked about suddenly finding himself. This is a little bit of a loosey-goosey translation, or not interpretation, but recollection. It's been quite a while since I read this, but it's something like this. He found himself in some kind of an amphitheater. He sensed it might have been sort of an underground thing, and there were entities, there were beings there, and he described them as something like self-reflecting jeweled basketballs or something like that. And he, in one of his stories, he describes how they kind of came up to him and said to him, "Don't be astonished, don't be overwhelmed by what we're going to show you." And then they showed him how they could create things just by thinking about them. So McKenna was way out there. He was way out there in the sort of extreme realms of possibility. DMT, as far as I can tell, from what I'm seeing in the literature and what I'm finding out from people in the field, is not that common anymore. 5-MeO has taken over in that sense, because 5-MeO doesn't take you into the. I mean, you can have extremely weird experiences with DMT, which is also often taken in the same way that I describe 5-MeO DMT. And I've read stories where trip reports where, like, one guy, for example, like I say, you're only gone for 5 or 10 minutes, but this one guy said he'd just come back from spending 2 months with some native tribe in South America. Like, it actually felt like he was there for 2 months, and then he came back. And there's even weirder experiences than that. In general, 5-MeO doesn't have that sort of, as far as I know anyway, it doesn't really generally take people into these sort of really wild, otherworldly places. It more just introduces you temporarily into what you might call non-dual reality. So again, I'm not 100% sure that it has the same kind of long-term utility as a medicine like ayahuasca or psilocybin, which can keep showing you things you need to see, perhaps especially ayahuasca in that sense, because ayahuasca is often referred to as a course of instruction, and I've experienced that personally. Where it will show you things that you need to learn, and then if you go back to your life, this is what people often call integration these days, right? If you go back to your life and you put the lesson into practice in your daily life, what it showed you. For example, one time I was shown about my own pride, my own tendency to pride, which kind of shocked me, because I thought, oh, I'm not really that kind of a person. I'm not arrogant, I'm not I don't think of myself as a big shot or any of that kind of stuff. But pride is a complex and nuanced psychological phenomenon. Any kind of differentiating yourself from people, any kind of holding yourself back, fear is associated with pride. Anything to do with self-protection and so on can all be related to the notion of pride, if you understand my way of using the word. Anyway, it showed me that. It's just the word came up, just a simple word, right in the middle of a really deep ayahuasca experience, in the context of a ritual that I was involved in, a ceremonial container. Just this word came up, and it was like, right away I knew it was talking about me. It was that this was for me. And as I say, I was surprised, like, really? Me? Pride? But then I went away and I thought about that, and I paid attention to the little ways that I do that and have done that. And so there was a teaching in that. And then the idea is that people talk about is that you do that if you humble yourself, if you're honest with yourself, if you take a good look at yourself, and you try to bring these lessons into your daily life. The compassion that it can show you, the love it can show you, the healing that it can give you. Then the next time you go back, in 2 weeks or a month or 3 months or half a year, the medicine spirit, you could say, many people would say it is a spirit, or there are spirits that guide you through ayahuasca, can go, you've done your homework. Now I can take you farther. I can give you another lesson. So like that. And again, that's
We
why
have
DMT, in my opinion, isn't really on the radar for being one of the major entheogens of the future. Whereas 5-MeO, maybe. But the reason I just gave you that little story about ayahuasca is because you're in there for 4 or 5, 6 hours. Whereas with 5-MeO DMT, it's like, poof, you're in there, and then poof, you're back out, or oosh, you're back out again. Go ahead.
Well, I do understand that it's just this year that the new version, or is it in the last year or two, that the new version of DMT that was synthesized by the big time people, I believe I heard Graham Hancock talk about it and a couple others, that they can actually stay in the trip for about 1 hour. And I think it's Cambridge, right?
Mm.
That was doing heavy research on DMT to actually map out the DMT world. And there is a lot of research on it. I don't think that there's like healing benefits to it. I think that would be
Maybe.
more of a let's just say more of a researching type of, one that, uh you would find wisdom in, and not just like healing,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
I did have a question in the chat. There is interest in ibogaine for healing properties of addiction. Can you speak on that for a quick second?
Yeah, I can actually. I haven't worked directly with ibogaine, so let's go back and give a little context to it. It's the primary psychoactive alkaloid that's been synthesized from a plant. The plant is known as iboga, or Tabernanthe iboga, which is native to Western Equatorial Africa. It's actually legal in the country of Gabon, in that area, where there are some 3 million or more adherents to a religion called Bwiti, Bwiti, and and it's regarded as a national treasure down there, and it is spread around. So the root, it's from the root of this plant, and so the pure iboga. Some people pronounce it iboga. I understand it to be pronounced iboga, spelled Iboga. Anyway, it's used in ceremonial work a lot. It's used in psychospiritual work, you might say, circles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ibogaine, again, is the psychoactive, concentrated, isolated, primary psychoactive alkaloid. And it can be extremely powerful. It can even be fatal on rare occasions, especially when it's counterindicated with another drug, for example. There have been fatalities, so it's not something people should muck around with on their own. It can last an exceedingly long time. Iboga itself does. I've participated. So my experience with Iboga is that I've participated in a full 3-day ceremony, and then for the next 7 years, I coordinated and assisted at once or twice a year for 7 years with a couple of shamans, you might call them, from the United Kingdom, from England. And I organized their ceremonies out here and then assisted at them. So I've seen a lot of people go through working with iboga. Again, ibogaine is a different story. It's not generally used in those kinds of conditions at all. Its most common use is in addiction treatment centers, of which there are, I think, dozens in different countries, and there are some even offshore in international waters, so the bad national authorities can't get them, etc. And they're not all the protocol isn't the same for all of them, but it might go something like this. You go for a week or perhaps even 2 weeks, and you might do more than one dose. There would be, generally, these treatment clinics should have an MD, they should have a nurse, they should have some therapist or whatever. You would more often than not, as far as I know, do this alone with the guide or whatever, but not in a group, not in a circle. Then you just process it, and it can last 30 hours or more. And so one of the things that I think is unique about both iboga and ibogaine, although it's not guaranteed, everyone would say it's not guaranteed, or the experts would say it's not guaranteed anyway, is that it can show you. It's sometimes been described as actually like pulling down a movie screen and being shown the place when you were very young, oftentimes, where you ran into something, whether it was a repeated situation or a one-off kind of crisis trauma-inducing situation, and in a sense turned away from yourself, closed off from your true self. I mean, we all do this to one degree or another as we grow up, but people with addictions, there's other complications, physiological, metabolic, et cetera, et cetera. But typically, this is Dr. Gabor Mate has done amazing work on this, and very popular now. Several books, When the Body Says No, The Realm of the Hungry Ghosts. There's another new one called The Myth of Normal. Anyway, anything that we do to turn away from ourselves can result in addictive behavior. And so what the ibogaine and the iboga too sometimes can show you is take you right back, in a sense, to that place. So that's one of the sort of two overlapping things that it does. The other one, which is really interesting, and I'm not sure that this does this all the time. This is based on some sources that I've read. It can literally knock out. It's fairly common. I don't know if it's universal. I don't know that it happens with every situation, but it can knock out the craving for the drug. If it's something like heroin or perhaps fentanyl or something like that, it can literally eliminate that craving for a temporary period of time that might be, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. But the beauty of that, potentially, that's a challenge, and the potential is that you have a window of opportunity to make some changes during that time when you're not craving your drug, right? But as they say in the sources I've read, that you have to do something with that. Like, it's really challenging. You're going to need some therapy probably, and you're very possibly, if not probably, if not for sure, going to have to change your circumstances. If you're hanging out with a bunch of other people that are doing addictive drugs, you may have to find a way to leave that circle of people. You can't keep putting yourself back into that situation over and over again and expect yourself to be able to change, because you're going to be influenced by your environment, obviously, right? So it gives you a fresh start potential. So yes, in terms of the question in the chat, that's, I think, a reasonably accurate description of how ibogaine can break addiction. That is, as far as I know, its primary use these days.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on iboga, and just some quick notes. It can be used therapeutically for treating addictions. It can be used in small doses as a stimulant to help sustain energy levels. The iboga plant was first discovered by the Pygmy tribe of Central Africa. It was passed down through Bwiti practices. So yeah, Bwiti tribes.
Weedy.
It is a
Yeah,
tool. It is a tool to communicate with ancestors and spirits. All the tribe
that's
would
right.
consume iboga plant in small doses for a stimulant effect in various medicinal ailments, such as fever, stomachache, liver disorders, impotency, mental illness, and addiction. Large doses would be hallucinogenic, and they would
Yeah.
induce them into a waking dream in which the initiate is contacted by ancestors and gain firsthand experience of Bwiti. But not only that, it is said in South Africa to be used as a liquid and administered into the eye to give the environment deeper texture and dimension, to help spot out animals while hunting. These effects reportedly last days or weeks, depending on the dose. And
Mhm.
just like
Yeah.
in Africa, it'd be used for visions and
Yeah.
large doses.
Well,
Yeah, very.
what you were describing mostly, though, I never heard about that usage in the eye that you just mentioned in South Africa. That's really interesting.
South
But
America.
Oh, South America. Oh, pardon me. Um, uh, but what you were describing a moment ago is particular to the way that they have used it and still do, I assume, in the Bwiti religion, which is not the way it's being used elsewhere for the most part. As I say, I participated in ceremonial circles, both as a participant and an assistant for 7 years or so. What they do, and this is their tradition, is they use it to initiate young people into what they call the culture of the real people, and it's elaborate. I read a book about it called, I forget what it's called. The subtitle is "The Visionary Route of Africa" or something like that. But I don't remember the main title. And anyway, so the preparation is elaborate, would go on for weeks, oftentimes, and involve many different components. And then the community would oversee the initiate's journey through the actual high dose. And we're talking iboga, the plant here, not ibogaine, of course. They never heard of that, back then. Then, and that would be, there would be a lot of music, a lot of chanting, different things like that. And the person, and that's when you were, that's what you were referring to when you said about seeing the ancestors and contacting the ancestors. That's not necessarily widely reported outside of that kind of context. And then the rest of the initiate's life, they might never, as far as I know, according to this book that I read anyway, they may not actually do a full-on breakthrough type dose ever again. They may only do what you referred to there as lighter doses, or psychedelic doses, to enter somewhat into the space so that they could be active and connected while they're guiding and participating in the rituals to bring along a new initiate that way. In my experience, it's a really the root we're talking about here is a really unusual medicine. It's, for most people, at the end of this 3-day ceremony, people would share their experience. So I heard probably over 100 of these testimonials at the end of the 3-day ceremony, and there weren't very many people talking about visual material at all. And in fact, it's really strange because it feels really powerful, but it's really hard to figure out what's going on a lot of the times. And part of the reason it's so difficult is because, how can I put this? All of us have hidden corners that we haven't been willing to look at about ourselves, parts of ourselves that we haven't been willing to face up until now. The iboga can, oftentimes in poetic or somewhat indirect or even subtle kinds of ways, can show you what you didn't want to see before. And because you didn't want to see it, you may still not want to see it when you're in the space with the iboga. And I've actually seen that. I'll tell you this one anecdote. I can keep it pretty short. This one woman that came to one of our ceremonies, she phoned me up about 2 weeks before the ceremony. She was coming up from California. She'd been around the block. She had tried every healing modality that you can possibly imagine, all forms of therapy and medicines and psychedelics and everything. And it seemed like nothing had gotten her where she wanted to be. She was still unsatisfied. So she called me up about 2 weeks before the ceremony. She said, well, I'm signed up for an ayahuasca ceremony for like a week after this. What do you think? Should I do it or should I cancel it? And I said, well, I don't know for sure. I said, Sean, the leader's guidance is leave it alone for 30 days, but you're an adult. You can make your own decision. Well, she took that to be that it's okay. I can continue. I can do this thing. So then she came to the ceremony, and in the sharing, she said she didn't feel like she got anything out of it particularly. But then she went home and she got into her own lifelong pattern problem, which was feeling guilty and responsible for decisions that she made. And so she had felt like she had owed whoever it was running this ayahuasca ceremony, but at the end to do it. But at the end of the weekend, Sean had reiterated this basic idea of leaving other substances alone for 30 days while the iboga continues to work with you. So then she thought, oh, gee, I was supposed to not do the ayahuasca ceremony. And she got all mad about it. And she went into this big thing. And Sean and I both realized right away, this was exactly her core issue. I don't know if I understood it completely in terms of being able to articulate it, but it again had something to do with making promises to people, then feeling responsible, then feeling guilty and conflicted, and then blaming and this whole thing. So the iboga actually took her through that and showed it to her, but she didn't want to see it. So I don't know if that woman ever actually learned what she was supposed to learn from Iboga.
Just a bit too much emotions, huh? It flooded her, and
Just
yeah, I'd
well, it's
imagine
just
that sometimes,
well, it's
yeah,
like I said,
sometimes these,
not wanting to see, and that's a challenge with the psychedelics altogether. They, there's actually some research to indicate that people can do these substances over and over again and not really change. Because if you're not willing to take that sometimes really difficult, humbling look at yourself, at your so-called dark side or shadow side or your faults, then you just kind of push them under the rug. And in fact, the psychedelics can actually make things worse. That's may seem like a controversial thing to say, but they can, in the sense that you have these powerful experiences where you feel like, oh my, I've had a spiritual experience. I've connected with the divine. I've connected with the non-dual reality of life. I've felt the great love of the universe. I've seen the wisdom of life, or whatever. If you come back from those experiences thinking that you've had these amazing spiritual experiences, but you don't do the difficult, almost tedious, and definitely, as I said, humbling oftentimes work to look at the full panoply of your behavior, positive and negative, so to speak, then the psychedelic experience can actually exacerbate your previously existing tendencies. It's called spiritual bypassing or spiritual materialism, right? Spiritual bypassing is, again, the notion that you don't want to look at the dark side. You only want to deal with the divine, the beauty, the love, the light, and all that kind of stuff, right? And spiritual materialism is actually a version of materialism. Standard conventional type of materialism is the idea that you accumulate things and you derive your sense of esteem from what you own and your status in the material world. Spiritual materialism, my old Buddhist teacher said, is actually the most dangerous or the worst kind of materialism, because it's harder to make a glorious case for yourself being a rich guy. But you can make a big, strong case for who you are if you think you've had these wonderful spiritual experiences. I'm this sort of enlightened person, or God has spoken to me, or whatever. So you can really become inflated with psychedelics. So again, that comes back to integration, to the humility required to do the grunt work, as it were.
and let's go ahead and start switching this over to one of our main topics. Now, what's going on in current day reality.
Mhm.
I'm very blunt with my point of views. I think that there's this spiritual battle, good versus evil, but it's tackled, the way we think, the way we see things, what's going on
Mhm.
in our skies, and entheogens can be a major part where it can help break down all of that mental bog, that everyone's confused about, reset our neuroplasticity. But not just that, it,
Mhm.
it can also provide some enlightenment if we choose to understand that the things that we see in our mind, or the things that we see through our eyes, whether we're in meditation or like literally have our eyes open, and we see these other dimensions, other realms, other entities that may be angelic, or if we see them as dark, then we know to put some walls up and start putting some barriers up. There's like all these um, you know things that we can go ahead and help ourselves with. We're at a current day and age where a lot of people are in denial. Just like you said, in some of these occurrences, yeah, that people are in denial of what they see, but it's also they don't even have to take psychedelics, or people don't even have to be on drugs anymore. And there's a lot of people in reality, current day, right now, that they are denying what they see on the news, or what they see on the internet, or what they see happening in their own current day society. I mean, you hear about so many people go ahead and turning away from cops abusing someone just because they don't want to get in trouble, or people videotaping a fight because, well, instead of standing up for the fight, they're just going to go ahead and they're not going to get involved, right? Like people are choosing not to accept, what they really should be doing, or what they really should be feeling, or how they really should be going through these motions. It's more of a neuroplasticity, this control mechanism, this matrix that we're currently living in, that's decimating our skies and decimating our oceans, decimating our bodies, and kind of controlling every little aspect of our day and age. And for me, I mean, I go ahead and hit the gym. I drink, eat and drink clean stuff, clean foods, organic, non-GMO. I take supplements. I have on clean airwaves most of the time, like enlightening stuff, and I'm doing my part, in using entheogens in the proper way, where I'm actually promoting the holistic benefit, the healing benefit, and not abusing this spiritually, where I'm wasting my time, or using these things for nefarious purposes, or those type of dark or evil energies. But it's not like our society's fault. It's kind of been entrained into us. But a lot of people, they see it, they see the darkness, and they don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to accept it. So this is a universal theme. It's it seems like current day society is addicted to the sin, addicted to the darkness. And I'll be real, there's this weird thing where, like, I kind of see it though, like people are addicted to those dark foods, dark substances. I this is just a little side note. uh I remember some people saying, like, "Man, I feel like crap." I'm like, "Well, what have you ate today?" They're like, "Well, McDonald's." I'm like, "Well, can I show you something?" I showed them, like, why McDonald's is so bad, and it was just like denial. It was like an addiction, this it they're just like, "No, I don't believe it. Whatever." They got mad over it, right? And it's like, that's crept that this ideology and spiritual force that we're against, it's interplays with exactly what you're saying with the entheogens, and how we everything is I know you want to bring it forth to a bigger topic, like this. And so
Mhm.
we can go ahead and see that this is very important.
Mhm.
It was just a couple hundred years ago, like, guys. I mean it, like, a couple hundred years ago, that a lot of our cultures, a lot of our societies and families, and people that we lived with, towns, churches, kind of, mm, but like societies, they understood these medicines, they understood these ways of life, where it was prayer, whether it was meditation, whether it was just using herb for their food, like cannabis for their food, and using it like a healing, edible type of thing, and not, um, in other ways, right? And these things were around, like, and if we look at the way the society's flipped upside down, it might be a link hand in hand, where there's a big agenda, a big map, big plan, and this is one of the points, to to destroy the spirit of the plants. And our understanding of it is synchronistically destroying our spirit of our life, and our understanding of it as a
Yeah.
culture. And it's been this declination.
Yeah.
um
Well, you've said a mouthful there, Joseph. I hardly know where to start with that. So let me see. Let me try to simplify it down into a sort of an overarching picture here. Um, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
well,
I'm not big
we
on.
could take a quick little minute. We could take a quick 3-minute break, and then come back at the top of the hour, and then get some water, and then
It's
yeah,
up to you. I don't need a break, but if you want to, go ahead. I don't need one. Do you need one?
well, no, I was going ahead and offering that we can go ahead and
Yeah, I'm good.
reset.
Yeah. Yeah, no, let's keep going while we have a train of thought going here. So,
Okay, perfect.
in terms of what you were saying about, okay, first of all, let's be a little more clear about when you were talking about a couple of hundred years ago. A couple of hundred years ago, cannabis in many places was accepted and used as a folk medicine and so on and so on. However, not the other psychedelics in general, not in this part of the world, except with indigenous people. So that's a whole other story. In fact, here's a couple of different ways to look at our current predicament. One of them is that, well, it's actually the same thing, but just talked about from slightly different angles. The Buddhist teachings are absolutely brilliant on this. So folks don't go like, oh, well, that's, your religion or somebody else's religion or something. Buddhist psychology is extremely analytical, but it's also based on experience of a lot of meditation, a lot of just paying attention, right? So the way the Buddha and the Buddhist teachings have described the human predicament or experience is that we, as I said earlier, we form these personalities from the time we are born, and we form them to protect ourselves, but they're also extremely limiting. And so when you use this term, that when you said that we're in denial, what we're in denial of for the most part is what Buddhist teachings would call the non-existence of this self that we have put together in a package that only exists as a series of coordinated ideas and concepts and beliefs and so on, right? So, but the problem with that is that no matter how successful you think you are in life, it's still extremely limiting and disconnected from our true nature and our true relationship with everything. And so they often say that ego, in this sense, this is what ego is in the Buddhist sense. We're not talking about like big ego necessarily. We're talking about this, what Buddhists would call the illusionary sense of a separated self, a separate self, okay? The problem with it is that even though you may think you're doing really well, there's still an underlying fear of loss of control, of loss of your position, et cetera, et cetera. This is why the psychedelics are so powerful, because they do undercut that. They can undercut that. And this is why they're also potentially dangerous if not used properly with some people, because the last thing you want to lose, in a sense, you could lose your wallet, you could lose your car, you could lose your house, but the one thing that nobody wants to lose in some sense is their ego, this identity that you've so painstakingly put together for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, right? We are deeply, deeply addicted or committed, attached to this personality. So the people that are, say, at the top, for example, who are actively standing in the way of the kind of material efforts that need to be done to put this planet back on a sustainable trajectory, they are, for the most part, I'm generalizing, no doubt, but I would say, based on evidence, observable evidence, those people tend to be particularly addicted to their condition or their situation of wealth and power. And so this is all, again, ego in that sense. This is all what's ultimately the frightened ego underneath everything. I mean, I don't know, there might be some Trump supporters in your audience. Don't want to get too controversial here, but I think to be honest here, most sensible, awake people can see through that guy. They can see that regardless of what he says, he's actually a self-absorbed, self-involved, frightened child. Like, just think of it. If the people that or any one of us knows, if somebody, anytime you dare criticize somebody, they fly into a rage, what would that tell you about your friend? That would tell you that that person is deeply wounded, right? But then what we do with that woundedness is we tend to cover it over and try to create this false sense of security. Well, that and our general spiritual disconnection, and it's been going on for a long time, much more than the last 100 years. It's been going on for at least 2,000 years as the predominant force in many parts of the world, has led us to this place where we have, because of our spiritual disconnection, we have, I hope I'm not boring you, Joseph, you're yawning. Anyway, it has led us to this precipice where we're almost destroyed the planet, right? So we are deeply in need of a radical consciousness transformation. Psychedelics can help, but they're not the be all and the end all. We also need to just pay attention, calm down, and do what we can to help, and not deny that the world is falling apart, and not try to bring it back to some false illusion of the old way anymore. The old ways are gone. The frivolous way of being on this planet is coming to an end. It has to be that way. And in fact, it's been predicted and prophesied for hundreds, if not thousands of years by indigenous people all over the planet, by people going into deep psychedelic experiences and seeing, getting teachings from the spirits and so on, and downloads. They're all seeing that we've come to this nexus point right now, and we have to wake up really fast. Psychedelics can help if they're used wisely.
I do think that we are at a nexus point. I feel that whether it be like, people call it the end times or rapture, the change of you know ages, whether like what we're heading to the age of Aquarius. I mean, like there's all these terms, right, of this great momentum, a great shift, the Kali Yuga or the
Yeah.
Yuga changes, right? And it seems to be like there's this veil, and people are like understanding right about now, yeah, that there is this there's two sides to what we're seeing, and the entheogen side is like one of the missing links, right? And how we've kind of been lied to, and I think more people are finding peace with it these days, as far as
Yeah, I
learning
suppose.
how
Yeah.
to calm their lives. Definitely.
Maybe,
I, I,
maybe, Joseph, but the statistics are counteracting that, as far as I can tell, too, is that there's a rise in depression, there's a rise in anxiety. So this is another essential central phenomena here, sort of psychological phenomenon, which is that when people think that their world is stable, they can calm down more. But when they don't think their world is stable, then they start to lose it. They start to become afraid and unskillful. And because of that, they become vulnerable to being manipulated by forces that are not good for them, like autocrats, dictators, and so on, that give them false promises that I'll look after you, I know the answers, or, I can bring you back to the way things were, et cetera, et cetera. These are extremely dangerous movements in culture. So part of what's needed now is education to point out to people that we are moving into increasingly unstable, chaotic times, and there's going to be more fear and anxiety. There's going to be an increasing amount of fear and anxiety. And what's really important is that anyone who possibly can needs to understand that and watch their own mind, that they don't fall into that same trap. And hopefully, if they're capable of it, educate other people about that too. Like, watch out, don't lose your mind. I think almost the most important message of the time in some ways is learn to trust the wisdom of your whole mind body system, and listen really closely, like as the great novelist Ernest Hemingway said, you have to have a finely polished, functioning bullshit detector. But it's really important to understand also that this is not about having opinions about, well, this is, there's this conspiracy happening or this or this. It's not about that. It's about paying attention to your own ultimately innate intelligence that is not based on opinion, not based on dogma, not based on this versus that or good versus bad or any of that. It's our own innate intelligence that has been, like as you said yourself, Joseph, seriously compromised or suppressed in many respects. And and all these things that you mentioned that are happening that aren't helping either, the food that people eat and so on. Those are whole complex topics as to why people do that. Part of it's simply affordability, right? It's cheap. The economic structure of America is so upside down in certain respects, that it's cheaper for a family of 5 to go and order from McDonald's than it is for them to buy a bunch of food at the grocery store and go home and cook it. Not to mention the fact that the extreme wealth and inequality in the United States and elsewhere has brought families to the position where oftentimes both parents have to work more than one job. So you can't have a healthy family or a healthy lifestyle in that way at all. So it all comes back to this need for a mass awakening. The psychedelics are not going to get that not going to reach that family of 5 that's struggling on 2 jobs each, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and having to buy fast food and so on. They're not going to get there. It's going to have to be it's going to have to be others that have the privilege or the ability to wake up as much as possible and participate in changing this world through education, through the creation of beautiful art, through political activity, et cetera, based on the heart, based on wisdom, not based on opinions or philosophies. That's my ramble on that one.
I think that there's a strong push for society these days, with powerful leaders who are thinking outside the box. Call them revolutionaries. Call them people who are just standing up for what's right. Some people think that this is all divine, where and angelic forces are coming down through people, through minds, through spirits right now, like to help at least
Maybe.
change the shift, change the paradigm. It's a
Yeah,
very fascinating time. I think
there is that. Yeah.
look, so there was something that I wanted to mention earlier, where you're saying that there's this divine intelligence within these entheogens. And if I'm looking at the way modern science and the way that ancient history understands anything, we're looking at multiple angles with what I'm about to say. So science thinks that there can be memory stored within water blocks, and
Hmm.
you know water
Possible.
very interesting. And if these entheogens have water in them, then memory could be stored in there. But also, if we look at the way ancient cultures had said, like, there were spirits within these plants. But with anything, like, if this is all true, then, like, people on nature, like food, even natural food, whether that be like apples or
Hmm.
oatmeal, oats and stuff, like anything, any natural um anything that comes from the ground, I guess, would retain these things. And I guess that's kind of where we get some of our experiences and understandings and life wisdom. Would you think that this is a major part of it? This is like, there is this
Hmm.
real deep spiritual essence to this look, because I'm personally in the belief that if we were made in the image of God, this is just me, um and if we have CBD receptors inside of us, I don't know what else to say. Like, I think that our creator, our God, our original one, had CBD receptors in them, and that all of this, these entheogenic natures will have been here for millennia or so. And
Yeah.
it's rekindling our spirit. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Well, okay, so that's another big topic with a lot of possible angles to it. So there are a couple of different things that I want to say about that. Thanks for introducing that topic. Um, One is that it's not what we take in to our bodies, I don't think, ultimately, although all those things can make a difference. I think it is important to eat healthy foods and look after yourself and so on and so on and so on. But I don't think having some chemicals in your food, for example, is going to prevent you from waking up, because that's a mental phenomenon. That's a psychological issue. We're all capable ultimately of calming our minds, of doing the healing work that we need to do, and waking up. And in fact, maybe it's almost like the other way around. The more you know yourself, the more you are in tune with your body and your mind, the more you will hopefully notice what feels right. And that's what I was saying a few moments ago about the bullshit detector too, right? Like we got to get a lot more intelligence, most of us, right? And so but that intelligence, again, I want to stress, it's not based on the mind. It's not based on intellectualizing. It's based on all body integrative, holistic experience in this moment, right? Feeling our way through the world, so to speak, as if we're blind and we're just feeling our way around, rather than thinking about, okay, this is what's true and blah, 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 like I said earlier in the conversation. So, excuse me, it really comes down to learning to open up and learning to surrender and learning to die to the old self and all those kinds of things. And again, like I say, yeah, eating the right foods and so on, that's all valuable. But I don't think the fact that most people are not going to have access to the best of foods or can't afford it or whatever is going to be the ultimate block to waking up. And when you said, for example, that there's a divine intelligence within the entheogens, I think that's true. But what their real job, so to speak, is opening up. And you had some interesting points earlier on, Joseph, where you talked about the way these things work with the neurotransmitters and the synapses and all that in our brains. They help us rewire them, the neuroplasticity that you referred to. But what they're doing is they're trying to help us find our own divine self, right? They're here in service in that way. And I think that's actually true. A lot of people talk about that work with these plants, that if you can open yourself up in the right way and surrender yourself into the space of the medicine plant, whether it's ayahuasca, psilocybin, or LSD, whatever, they have things to teach you. And I think actually what's going on this planet is there are, although there are dark energies, both in material and non-material form, I think there are great beings, great wisdom beings of great kindness that deeply, deeply care about this planet and the inhabitants of this planet, not just humans, all of it. And because we humans are the drivers, the elephants aren't going to change the world. The tigers aren't going to change the world. The ants aren't going to change the world. The beluga whales aren't going to change the world. We are the only species on this planet that can change things, that have the capabilities to create a different type of planet. And so we are the ones that they have to get to, in a sense, right? In a sense, you might say the whales are already enlightened. They're doing their thing the way they were always meant to, and they have their own type of intelligence. But we've been cut off from our natural intelligence. And you can't blame anybody for it, or you can try, but in the end, it has to come back to going, I am the engineer of my own destiny in that sense. I am the one who can wake up. I can't take any victim mentality. I can't blame anyone ultimately, because I'm the one who can do it. I'm the only one who can do it for myself. It's my choice as to whether I remain in ignorance and denial, or whether I learn to heal and learn to wake up. Okay. So the spirits, as it were, the great beings, if you will, as I understand them, because they care, they can't do it for you. They can't speak through you exactly, I don't think. What they can do is create an environment, and this is not just me saying that. This is people that are really tuned in have been saying this. They're creating an environment whereby more people can open up to what they can download, that they can help us with in our own wisdom. But it's really our own wisdom that they're showing us that is there, that we can tap into. So I don't know if that's exactly a response to what you said, but it's vaguely like that. So you know what, Joseph? We've been on for almost an hour and a half now. To be honest, I'm getting a little bit weary. It's getting late in the evening here, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. I don't know if you have maybe like one more question you want to ask me about, but other than that, I kind of feel like I'm starting to fade.
Well, if anything, yeah,
Hello?
I kind of did have something. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like there was a
Can you hear
glitch
me?
there for a second, but I think we're okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. No, I
so
mean, well, you kind of didn't finish that last question a little bit, where I was like asking about how the CBD receptor would be connected to God and our ancient
yeah,
past. If we were made in God's image and we have CBD receptors inside of us, I mean, undoubtedly, look, that's just a legit question. Where, like, in the ancient past, when all of this was, going on and written and stuff,
uh-huh,
anyways, like it was a common thing, anyways. So, uh, but I mean. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was that last part of that question. But I also,
yeah.
no, if you want
Well,
me to ask a legit question, there is. I want to know what your understanding is on why these entheogens are alternating our visual cortex and our pineal. What it might have on our pineal gland and the vision and what we're seeing.
mhm,
Like,
yeah,
why specifically? I mean, it's unlocking things.
yeah.
Is,
Well,
is
okay.
it telling
I'm
us the
not.
truth?
Well, you can be deluded. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Mm.
Terence McKenna used to say, if you meet some entity in the spirit world, under the influence of an entheogen or a psychedelic, and it tells you something, don't just take it as gospel. There's lots of entities out there, what McKenna called the angel and demon haunted realms. There are dark energies out there. So this is why I say it all has to come back to trusting your own bullshit detector, your own intelligence. But as far as like CBD in the body or any of these things, or the pineal gland, any of these things, I don't know if this is, absolute, hard truth that can't be, disagreed with in any way. But here's my take on it for what it's worth. Um, uh, Mind is the only reality. Intelligence is the only reality. Intelligence at its peak, at its optimal, can create anything. Otherwise, this world wouldn't even exist. How did this world come out of nothing? This incredible, beautiful, complex, interwoven world. It's absolutely stunning, this planet, regardless of all the stupidity and ignorance of our behavior, the planet itself and the whole thing. I mean, how bizarre is it? How absolutely incomprehensible is it that we are we're on this little ball in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of space, that's spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles an hour, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and traveling around a giant ball of fire, at which we stay the same distance essentially from it all the time, right? And it's just the right distance to support the kind of life that exists on this planet. If it was a little bit farther away or a little bit closer, gonzo, right? Everything about it, the amount of oxygen in the total atmosphere, 20% or whatever it is. If it was another, I don't know, 5 or 10% in one direction, gonzo, we're all gone, right? Everything is incredibly brilliant and intelligent. However, and this is kind of an attempt to answer your question, I think, about why these capabilities and pineal glands and CBD in the body and all that kind of thing. We are my view of it is that the spirits really are, I think Jesus said, kindly bent to ease us. They want to reach us. They have information for us to open up to our own intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. But we're so bloody thick, we're so bloody covered over and encrusted, that they have to find ways to get in to us. So I don't think it's just random or a coincidence that psilocybin mushrooms have a chemical configuration which is almost exact. The psilocybin in them, tryptamine chemicals, hallucinogen, or whatever you call it, is almost exactly the same as certain components of brain chemistry. DMT, same. These chemicals are incredibly simpatico with human brain chemistry. The spirits will get through any way that we will let them. This is why I don't want to go on about this one, but this is why, for example, there's a power in tarot cards. You know, um, it's like the spirit guides are sitting there going, "Oh, if these guys are so thick, but it's hard to get through to them. They're not listening. They're not paying attention. But if they can throw out a bunch of cards here." We're happy to come through and show them the patterns in these cards, and there'll be some lessons there. I know I could bore your listeners and viewers for half an hour talking about experiences I've had with cards that confirm the uncanny nature of how insight and intelligence can come through the use of cards. So all I'm saying is that the individual, the material components of whatever's in our bodies and whatever's in nature, they're all subservient to the ultimate reality, which is the intelligence that's in the universe, that guides the universe, that creates everything altogether. And the rest of it is just technology. The rest of it's all technology. It's like an artist or a designer or any kind of creator that goes, let's try this, Anyway, I really do want to go to bed now, Joseph. It's getting...
We'll have to bring you on another time. But I got a question for days, man. It's been an amazing conversation, and I appreciate your time, Stephen Gray. And guys, go ahead and make sure to check his workout. Let them know about anything that you got coming up, and any last message and where they can find you.
Well, just to repeat what I said at the beginning, I'm on most of the social media channels as Stephen Gray, StephenGray, and some of them, the two words are mushed together, and it's Stephen Gray, and then a separate word, vision. And on my website, there's a contact form if people want to write me, if they have, reasonable questions or comments they want to make, et cetera, et cetera. Happy to talk to people. I actually quite enjoy having those kinds of exchanges with people. And also I mentioned the Spirit Plant Medicine. I'm an admin on that. I've been co-organizing this conference for 13 years. And it's a wonderful conference up here in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's a really important conference for helping change consciousness on this planet. We get a lot of the great leading figures in psychedelics and consciousness transformation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As far as what I personally have got coming up, I'm doing some writing these days in small ways. I'm not writing another book at the moment, but I'm writing up some course material for a course by a group here in Vancouver called Flying Sage, which is putting together some courses on healing and so on and so on. And working with my co-organizer. This is actually the big push for finding speakers for our conference now. So for example, tomorrow morning, one of the reasons I want to get a good night's sleep tonight is 9:00 Pacific tomorrow. I've got an interview. I'm interviewing somebody as a possible speaker. And then right after that, I got another one at 10 in the morning for another possible speaker, a native Indigenous woman anyway, so those are the kinds of things I'm doing other than wasting time whenever I can. Say what?
Good luck. Heck yeah, man.
Oh yeah, thanks.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so
that sounds pretty cool, man.
Yeah, thanks. Well, keep doing what you're doing, Joseph, and keep doing your research and your study, and stay humble, and keep your mind open. And let me know when you've got this published, and I'll share it as well.
Yeah, man. I'll definitely go ahead and contact you some more for more information. We'll bring you back on, dude. Anytime, man.
Sure. Okay.
You have a wonderful night. God bless. Hey.
Thanks. Yeah, my wonderful night is mostly going to consist of sleeping from this one. Okay, we'll see you.
Yeah, I got another fitness client up in the morning. I got to wake up early and go work out. Sheesh. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. It's fun work.
Okay, I'm gonna take off now. Yeah, I don't know how to close out of here, but whatever.
All right, man. Hey, all right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. It's been a blast of a night, guys, and just take this to heart that we care in a intelligence way. This world around us, it's filled with divine intelligence. I mean, literally, whether we understand this from a perspective of seeking inward or outward, we got to connect more and realize that what we got around us is very special, very potent, and the things that we see and the things that we feel are very true. We can't just be in denial of life. We can't go ahead and just run behind the curtain and be like, well, I don't want to believe that because it's just not me. No, not my agenda. No, see, it's not the way the world works. The truth hurts, but the truth will heal you. The truth will set you free. But first, it'll shake your reality, guys. And along with that is understanding how to go ahead and research more about you, yourself, your life, your family, history, everything around you, from your environment to what you eat, drink, how you sleep, what you dream, what you think, what you put on your body, what you have in your house, as far as images, sound, vibration. This is all going in, right? Like this is deep. What we got is very special in this world. God gave us one life, and there's no denying that everything around us affects us, right? We're a product of our environment. What type of product can God see in you? What kind of product can the universe see in you, or the world? Are you destructive, peaceful, aware, knowledge, ignorant? Hey, it's all up to you. And with Papa Nine Divine Pints, what I do is I just help any way I can, guys. And it's a long night, and I'm getting pretty tired. I could go ahead and work out in the morning. You guys have a great time. Remember, like, subscribe, share, check down for all the links, all donations, all the help you can give or get. This is the end of the broadcast. I'm pretty tired. Yeah. Let me go ahead and figure this out. Yeah. Hope you guys loved it. Remember, guys, tomorrow we have on Stephen Kelly from the Gettysburg Museum research and what might be happening with tunnels and things that you never thought were possible. I mean, literally, guys, if he goes as hard as I think he will, or maybe I don't know, but I'm hoping that there's some juicy stuff tomorrow night. You guys go ahead and check in. It's gonna be a fun one. All week long, we got broadcasts. Wednesday, Jim Gale is going to be on. Thursday, I believe Sherry Ariana. So it's gonna be a good one. You guys enjoy. Be blessed. Be high. See you guys next time on the 509 Divine Vibes podcast. Peace.